started this we started this line last time. We're talking about how the Yetzer Hara keeps us real busy. Kenny Atzase Yetzer Hara mamash al bnei adam ki ish milchamahu melumad bar mimas. Now, some of these ideas we might have discussed before, but they're so important. I want to focus a whole session to this. It's the Mesilas Yesharim, and to bring out what he's saying. He's an ish milchama. The Yetzer Hara is an ish milchama. He is a man of battle. Melumad bar mimas, and he's melumad, and he's very, very, very taught and knows and regular in trickery. And therefore, it is impossible to avoid him. Ella bechachma rabba ubashkafa gedola. Right? And this really resonates and emphasizes and echoes what we saw in the earlier prakim, that one of the main things that Mesilas Yesharim was driving in his Akdama was you need smart, dedicated, intelligent people to get into Avodas Hashem, and not just science, and not just industry, and not just business, and not just lamdis and halacha. That's what he said. Because we need people dedicated to this study to get it. And here you see it. The Mechemes HaYetzer. How do you get out of Mechemes HaYetzer? With Chachma Rabba Vashkafa Gedola. Incredible. You need Chachma Rabba, a lot of wisdom, Vashkafa Gedola, a far-reaching vision. You have to be a visionary to beat the Yetzer Hara. Okay? So that's a very, very, very powerful idea. So anybody thinks like, yeah, okay, no, Memela, we get it. No, you're not going to Memela get it. Hashkafa Rabba, Chachma Gedola, Chachma Rabba, Hashkafa Gedola. Why do you need the Chachma Rabba, Hashkafa Gedola? Because you have to know your enemy. Right? I hate to give this, I hate to refer to this, but it's just so relevant. Right? Those in Israel know, and those who studied what happened know. But the concept was called the Conceptia, right? The best minds in Israel, and Netanyahu to the whole thing, all of them, not getting into politics here. It's not. I know what Mesilas Yesharim explained is all about. We don't do politics explained. I don't think about politics too much. I don't understand politics too much. It doesn't interest me too much, right? But certainly know what we're talking about. But they thought you give Hamas money from Qatar, everything would be okay. They're building all these tunnels. I don't know what they were thinking, right? And then the country got the shock of its life, October 7th. So that's exactly an example. When you don't know who your enemy is, So look what happened. Of course, the Rebbeinu Shalom has this bonus, but we're talking about we are supposed to learn from it. That's a tremendous limud from it. Look at that. They totally misjudged. They totally got blindsided. It's unbelievable. Hamas is contained, and we can be friendly to them. We can do this, do that, and they look like absolute fools. I mean, it's much worse than looking like fools. So much suffering, so much pain, so much death, so many chatufim, countries in trauma. So much of the country is still in trauma. So many people, so much death, so many friends of people who died, so many families of people died, and people without limbs, and people with psychological problems, divorces, a lot of divorce came out of this whole thing. We don't necessarily think about it, like to talk about. Everybody likes to, Derech Emunah B'charti, definitely Derech Emunah B'charti. That was one nice side, and a lot of beautiful things, beautiful limudim from the chatufim, the hostages, definitely. But there's a lot of pain that's still being left. I've understood a lot of shalom bayis that came out from the Miluim that came away for hundreds of days. So what does that do to a marriage? If a marriage is very, very strong, okay. The kitzer, so, right, I'm not trying to be depressing here, but what I am trying to say is that the lesson is that you have to know your enemy, right? And that means, just like to beat Hamas and to beat radical Islam, we need Chachma Rabba Vashkafa Gedola. To beat the Yetzer Hara, we need Hashkafa. We need Chachma Rabba Vashkafa Gedola. But now I want to take a historical step back and explain why we have a problem with this in a little bit of a way. And I think by giving a little historical perspective, it'll be understandable and see what our problem is today when we hear things like the Yetzer Hara is an Ish Milchama, Tachbula se Yetzer Hara v'ra armato, right? There's a basic problem we have with this, which doesn't let us recognize it in all of its truth, right? All of us understand. We understand more that Hamas is an enemy. It's not just Hamas. Don't call it Hamas. It's radical Islam. That's right. That's not our only enemies, but it's just where you think it's just a bunch of guys, and I forgot if they're Sunni or Shiite. They're Sunni, I think, right? They're Sunnis. Yeah, the Iranians are Shiite, and Sunnis and Shiites. I actually had a taxi driver. I forgot which one he was. One of them, and I was schmoozing with him. I mean, I wanted to find this out. I said, "Would you marry a Sunni?" He's like, "Of course not." So they're not. The only thing they get together on is my enemy's enemy is my friend. They all get together in Mesilas Yesharim, but it's not Hamas. It's absolute. That's going weiter in the concepcia. It's radical Islam, which is all over the world in many forms. Those who are working in a more lawful way, and those who are but it's all part of the big caliphate. We understand that, but believe me, a lot of our friends in the West don't understand it, or are being malam from it. But anyway, just give that as an example. Okay, so that was a good example. So it's taken me a while to piece the pieces together, but I'm pretty sure that everything I'm saying is basically true. Post the Holocaust, Klal Yisrael was in a terrible trauma, and the Yiddishkeit, it was a traumatized Yiddishkeit in a certain way. And people deserve, we're not pointing pictures here, we're just saying for our Toelis, we're learning, as you'll see, right? The fact that people picked themselves together at all, from all that they had gone through, is something that we have to stand in awe of. And the Samarov said that when he left whoever he was, and one of his people asked him one time, who's going to daven for me if you're away? So he says, go to shul and find someone when they're rolling up their tefillin, when they're rolling up their sleeve, put on their tefillin that has the numbers on their arm. Ask him to daven for you. He can daven for you. Very famous. Samarov said that. So we have no idea the godless of that generation and the children, right? But at the end of the day, it was a traumatized generation, and the view of Yiddishkeit was also such that we had suffered, etc. We held on, Afal Pikain. And Rav Moshe Feinstein really said this. This is where the kernel of this idea first came from. That Shver zu sein a Yid, right? I mean, it's difficult to be a Jew, is what caused the destruction of Yiddishkeit in America. Now, what did that mean? That meant that those who were holding on, the people went off the derech. They didn't say Shver zu sein a Yid. They were happy going to Harvard and marrying non-Jewish women and things like that. Yeah, Shver zu sein a Yid was the Yid who were holding on. You have to be mamik in the words of a gadol. It means those who were holding on, and they were getting fired from their jobs, etc., and all that they gone through, the survivors and not survivors. I'm not just talking about survivors itself, etc., but that whole people, it was difficult. Yiddishkeit was difficult. Shver zu sein a Yid, and that's what they brought to their children. And Moshe was saying, therefore, it wasn't a happy Yiddishkeit, and therefore people weren't interested. That doesn't go over the kids, and that's why you have to bring so much simcha shel mitzvah and geschmack and singing to the children, and it's gevaldig gebid, etc. So now, if we place that against at least a certain portion of something very nice that's happened in our generation, is that we're much more positive, right? The Karlebach Minyanim, the singing, the dancing, they never had 40 years ago a musical hallel with instruments. Didn't exist. I'm not saying maybe Shlomo's people and some small, but as a davar the makubal, that something was. Now, some people like that. Some I'm not getting into whether you should have a musical hallel with instruments. It's not. But I'm talking about the fact that it's definitely something which is very close to mainstream, if not mainstream, right? And if they would do it in Panovich or the Mir, but or YU, but it's out there, and people are, and the whole idea geschmack to be it and sing to be it. I have a relative who's very 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 yeshivish, and he emphasized this point to me. It wasn't like this when he grew up at all. 30, 40 years ago, it wasn't geschmack to be it. Thank you Hashem, Pamod Es Hashem, and that's a gewaldig movement, gewaldig, but it's a swing. Now we have to understand when something swings this way, it's going to swing. It's a swing, and the problem, if I may, and I'm bringing this back to the Mesilas Yesharim, is that we in our world don't like negative things. We don't like kanayim. We don't like zealots. We don't like, we don't like milchama. We don't like battles. We it's just geschmack to be a yid. Roll with Eibishter, make Shalom it's great again. But there is a downside. So why did I give this whole 10-minute introduction? I think it's valuable because I think it shows a little bit where we get to a certain level of imbalance, and it's all understandable. We're not pointing fingers, we're not judging, it's our job to understand what's going on in the generation. And therefore, it's difficult when you tell me there's like Yetzer Hara there's a Yetzer Hara that we're not talking about radical Islam, right? We're not talking about them. We don't have a problem saying they're bad. But by the way, you see a lot of the world does have a problem saying they're bad. So you see how kooky it is. But we're kookier than all the liberals and all the progressives. We're kookier. You know why? Because they can't see that radical Islam is against them and they would throw them off the rooftops of Tehran and Jabalia. They don't see that. But we don't see that a worse force, I'm talking to myself, in us, wants to throw us off the rooftops. And it's a Yetzer Hara that's in me, it's a Yetzer Hara that's in you, and it's a Hara that's in all of us. That's not pleasant. But this is all, I'm saying this all to get to the Pshat of Mesilas Yesharim. What have we done if we just read the words and we don't think about how it relates to our lives? He has tachbulos. He has stratagem. He's armato. He's wise. He's cunning. And he's an ish milchama. Listen to all these words. Umelumad bar mimus. And you can only get away from him if you're really, really smart. Chachma rabba ashkav. What chachma rabba ashkav gedol? I don't have a Yetzer Hara. You see, sometimes I ask fellas, sometimes like, what do you think your difficulties are? It's very important a person knows his good midas for sure. That we like in this generation. Some people with low self-image don't like that. Okay, you got to work on that. You got to know your good points. But bad points, maybe I'm like, sometimes I'm like too nice. Sometimes I'm too giving. That's it. Gaiva, no. Kas, no. Low self-confidence, no. What's my problem? Only problem I have is I'm too giving. Yefeh mod. Lo yefeh. It means you don't understand. No, there's a koach inside of you that wants to destroy you. Think of an up-and-coming politician who has a problem with those matters, and his career is gone. That's inside of all of us. There are koachas inside of us which want to destroy all of us, which would like us to make nothing of ourselves, to feel bad about ourselves all the time, etc. But we have to face that. We have to have the confidence and the belief in ourselves to face that. But no, there are negative things inside of me. Now, for some of us, it might be that we can make a machlokas and destroy a yeshiva or community one day, God forbid. Who do you think does that? Who destroys the Hasidus? Bad people? What do you think they are? There were people who were sitting on the same bench as you and me that one time something triggered them and they hadn't worked on their midas, and now they're destroying the yeshiva, destroying the Hasidus, destroying the community, kicking out the Rav. Because he, who knows what? You're really kicking out the Rav because of that? What did he do? Well, he gave us musik too much. You're kicking him out because of that? That's not your bad midos? No. But look at that. You kicked out, sometimes I'm not getting into anybody. Obviously, I'm just picking random examples, right? But it could be you kicked out a Rav just because of a bad midah. That's not the Yetzer Hara being taking you over. There was a good yashar person who was running a community, and he got on your bad side for no real good reason, and now you're hurting your community and him and his parnasa. That's the Yetzer Hara got you. You're cleat to the Yetzer Hara. You don't realize it, but that's what happened. So I'm just trying to bring it down. If we don't understand that it's inside of us, I know the Yetzer Hara, which is extremely destructive in certain ways, and therefore I can contain it a little bit. But if we don't see that, if we don't understand our enemy, by the way, Mesilas Yesharim was writing this. The Chovos HaLevavos rates it even stronger. I don't have it right now with me, but the Chovos HaLevavos is really talking. He's with you. And Hasidic Sfarim talking about it also. Don't think, I'll just learn Hasidus and avoid Schoonmaker. No more Mesilas Yesharim explain. I'll just go to Hasidus. Read the Pias Netzna. Pias Netzna, Saba Zirim talks about the Yetzer Hara. He gets you. You know why everybody writes it? Because it's true. How much they focus on it. Okay, that's a good question. I'm focused on this now because I'm trying to be neman to the savor of Mesilas Yesharim and to something which I think is deeply relevant for our times. So this is really, really, really a big, big point which we all have to reflect, because we're talking about Zehiras now, and Zehiras is all about being watchful of what we do, when we do it, after we do it. But the Yetzer Hara is working against us. And that is a central message to understand. We're awesome. Remember last session? Klal Yisrael, humanity wants good. Just clear the air, put us in space, and we're going to think about good things, and we're going to turn our lives around and be a lot better. And the more we can take time out, spend time in shul, spend time in nature, spend time with the family in a good context, not busy, we're going to tune in to our inner voice, which wants so much to be good and is so good. And Klal Yisrael is so beautiful. So much care, so much chesed, so much tzedakah, so much Torah, so much of everything. But there's a strong Yetzer Hara, which is also working hard to destroy each one of us in our different points. And part of the destruction is not becoming the great people we could be, not doing great things for Klal Yisrael that we could do, right? Some of it is worse, bringing us to Averas, lack of health, and all types of things, dissension in families, right? Why does he keep talking negatively to his wife? Why can't she just be a little nicer to him? Build up your husband a little bit. Build him up. Give him a good feeling. You worked hard to bring Parnasa. Why are you giving such a hard time all the time? That's the Yetzer Hara. That's the woman's Yetzer Hara. Right, being anxious the whole time sometimes, and not give the kid a good feeling. You're giving your kid confidence. You're giving them love. Right? So there's the Yetzer Hara which is around, and he's working. We got to know him. We got to realize he's our enemy. And Bezrat Hashem, once we know he's our enemy, with Chachma Rabba Shkafa Gedola and with the Mesilas Yesharim with us, we have the wind on our backs, and we'll be able to beat him.